welcome you to our Career Connect Spotlight event featuring our friends from Polar Bear International and their program Tundra Connection. While we wait for some friends to join us and get classrooms from across the country to join us, we're going to use a Discovery Education Spotlight on strategy called I Spy to determine and think about what it is that we're going to talk about today. What I want you to do in your classroom is look at this image. Consider what is happening in this image. Who are the people in this image? And what is the setting of the image? So we'll give you a moment. And if our classroom who's live as well would like to have a discussion on what do they think is happening in this image? Who are these people? Why are they there? And what is the setting of this image? This is a strategy that we use in classrooms across the country and is available inside Discovery Education Experience. So give you a moment, and then we will move into our program. So what exactly is happening in this image? What you're seeing in this image is you're seeing a broadcast. They are streaming live from this Tundra buggy, which is pretty wild. And who do you see in that picture? You actually see our friends from Polar Bear International. And where are they located? Where's the setting of this image? It's actually in the subarctic tundra near Churchill, Manitoba in Canada. So our friends today joining us from Polar Bears International, they're coming live to us from the tundra. So again, super excited, and thanks for joining us, you all, from across the country, our classrooms, and our classroom that is joining us live, and our scientists from Polar Bear International. We're excited to host today's spotlight with our fantastic guest, Alysa McCall, who is the Director of Conservation Outreach and a staff scientist. We are joined also by students from Craven County Schools in North Carolina. Hi, friends. Thanks so much for joining us today. So excited that you're here. Woo! Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to share more information about our guests in just a moment. But before I do, I want to share some more details about this new series that all of you are joining us for, which is Discovery Education's Career Connect Spotlight. Career Connect Spotlight is a virtual series that allows multiple classrooms just like yours from across the country to tune in live and to hear from subject matter experts in a huge range of career fields, like the scientists that we're going to meet today from Polar Bears International. This series is brought to you by Discovery Education's exciting new platform called Career Connect, which connects classrooms like yours to industries, skills, and people like the scientists that you'll meet today who really power and change our world. Our goal for this series is really to make it easier for students like yourselves to connect to all kinds of professionals and real-world connections that you're already learning about in your classroom right now. We hope these connections will inspire you to dream big and consider what you want to be when you grow up. So my name is Kimberly Wright, and I'm a former science teacher, but now I work at Discovery Education as an instructional design manager. Basically, all that means is that I help create the content that you use when you log on to Discovery Education Experience. And I am thrilled to be your host for this Career Connect Spotlight. And in today's Spotlight, I'm excited to introduce you to Alysa McCall. Alysa spearheads Polar Bears International Tundra Connections program, and she's incredibly passionate about science education and polar bear conservation, and she's dedicated to ensuring that the future generations inherit a healthy planet. And we're thrilled to have her live from the Tundra as our Career Connect Spotlight guest. We also want to welcome the incredible Earth and Environmental High School students joining us from Craven County in North Carolina. So hello. Hi, friends. And if you didn't know, we're all joining from 3 different time zones from across the country, across North America, really. And just excited to be here. Now, students from Craven County, we understand that what you're studying is deeply connected to the work that Alysa and her team are doing, and we can't wait to hear your curiosity questions that you have for her today. But before we get to your questions, we want to introduce Alysa using a Discovery Education spotlight on strategy. Alysa has put together 4 images that really represent the work that she does every day at Polar Bears International. Now, it's up to you to guess how these images represent the work that she does every day. You'll use these 4 images to determine what you think her work entails. And all of you viewing at your school can kind of decide what it is that you think she might do. What does her everyday look like? And then you can share it with your class, but we'll hear directly from our students in Craven County as well. So we're going to give you a moment to think about these 4 different images that represent the work Alysa does. Give you a moment to talk to your classmates. So students there in Craven County, if you want to take a moment and kind of think about what it is that Alysa does. And we'll let you share when you all are ready.
All right, we have an answer.
I think she studies ways to protect polar bears.
Ways to protect polar bears. Okay. Do we have anything else you all want to add? Sorry?
Somebody said study their actions.
Study their actions. Okay, maybe their behaviors. Alysa, you want to tell us more about what you do?
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So I do look at ways to protect polar bears, and I'm very happy to have the job that I have, and I get to do that work in a lot of different ways. So one way that I work to help protect polar bears is outreach like this. So you heard that I run and oversee our Tundra Connections program. So that's really our education piece of what we do. So we feel like if somebody better understands something, then they're, especially a polar bear, then they're more able to fall in love with that thing and then want to act on its behalf to protect it. So I do, education outreach, talk to people about polar bears, spread the love of polar bears, make sure they have the most current facts about polar bears. But then to get those facts and that information, we have to research polar bears and work with scientists and do science. So asking questions about the species, questions that give us a better understanding of what that species needs, and then applying those answers. So at Polar Bears International, we do quite a bit of research. We do our own research and we fund other research. So also part of my job is finding money for research. And that means I need to have good writing skills. I need to be able to write, why someone should want to give us money to do some good work. And some of the work we're doing at Polar Bears International is related to polar bear moms and cubs, looking at some denning work. We're funding things like genetics, but a lot of what I'm doing right now, particularly in Canada, where I live, is supporting coexistence work. And coexistence is basically people and polar bears. How can we live together safely? So we keep polar bears in the wild, we keep people safe, and there's different ways we can do that. We feel like if we want to see polar bears live in the Arctic for a very long period of time, as we know that they will spend longer periods of time on land near communities, we need to be supporting communities in coexisting safely with the bears. So when you looked at those images earlier, you saw maybe a green bin. And that doesn't look very exciting, but when it comes to bear conservation, it's very important because that's a bear-resistant garbage bin. And that's one of the key things that we can do to help protect bears, including polar bears, is lock up our garbage and our waste attractants. So we work with communities to help supply some of those bear-resistant garbage bins. Another thing we do is work with communities to spread good information about staying safe with polar bears. So you saw a piece of a handout that we created with communities in Northern Ontario. They are Cree community, the First Nations group in Canada, and they are seeing more polar bears than they have before. And some people, when they're out on the land and they're hunting and they're fishing, they might not know how a polar bear might be a little different than a brown bear or a black bear. And so we're helping get some information out there, working with the communities, saying, what do you need? What do you know? How can we help you? And then really putting our good listening ears on and then working in ways that support different communities in different ways to stay safe with polar bears and have tools that might scare a polar bear away, but not kill it right away. So we really want folks to feel supported in that. So yeah, we're really lucky to do what we do here at Polar Bears International. I have an amazing team. I love that my job has both science and education. I'm kind of one of the bridge people at this organization where I get to bring the science to the ed team and get it out to folks, but also then come back and say, hey, this is what else we need to know that people are asking about polar bears. So I really love the work that I do. And really quickly earlier, you saw some other images of me and work that I've done before. And you saw that little mouse. And that's really how I started with this job. I went to university. I finished high school and I went to university and I did an animal biology degree. I just loved wildlife. I didn't think I was well suited to be a veterinarian necessarily. So I got into kind of field work. And my first jobs for a few summers were researching little deer mice. And I loved it and I loved them. And we would put little collars on the mice and track them around the grasslands. And then I got to work with snakes and badgers and all sorts of great stuff. And then through that job, I networked, I met people, I made good impressions, I got decent grades, and I ended up in a polar bear graduate program. And I've never looked back. Polar bears are an incredible animal. And as I've come to work for Polar Bears International in the last 10 years, I've been able to really grow that work, talk to more people. I was able to do a TED Talk last year, which is a super fun way to get the word out about the importance of polar bears, living with people. And I get to do things like this and talk to students all around the world. So I'm really grateful for what I get to do.
Wow, Alysa, you have an incredible career and do such important and necessary work for our planet. You're truly an inspiration for all of our students, and we're so glad that you're here with us today. And we can't wait to learn more about what you do and just learn more about polar bears today. Our students from Craven County, they have some questions that they've prepared for you and would like to ask you. Earth and Environmental High School students, are you all ready to share your questions with Alysa?
Yes, we
are.
Yes,
ma'am. Awesome. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I'll toss it over to you all to ask your questions directly to Alysa.
Jerry, my name's Ray, and my question is, do polar bears hibernate?
Thanks, Ray. Polar bears do not hibernate. So they're one of the bear species that don't need to. So right now, when brown and black bears are heading into their dens for the winter, polar bears are just getting ready to kind of have their main hunting season. The only polar bears we know of that can go into dens and have a resting period are pregnant moms who go into their dens to give birth. Otherwise, polar bears are active year-round, though they might slow down to conserve energy at times where they can't reach their main prey, seals.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name is Christopher Lowry, and I have a question. What is polar bear milk like?
Ooh, great question, Christopher. So polar bear milk is the fattiest milk that we find on land. It's about 30%, just over 30% when the cubs are born. So that's like cubs drinking whipping cream. It's very fatty and full of calories, and that helps polar bear cubs grow really quickly. As polar bear cubs get older, their mother's milk fat content will decrease, and the cubs will start eating more seal fat, and they'll still drink milk, but it'll be a little less fatty, but still has lots of calories. So moms need to be in really good shape to be able to provide that milk to their cubs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rue, and my question is, how far can a polar bear swim?
Oh, yeah. So polar bears are very good swimmers. They can swim for a long time. The longest recorded swim we have on record was about 427 miles. So that's well over 600 kilometers. And that polar bear did that over a course of about 9 days. And she lost a lot of body weight. So polar bears can do really long swims if they have to. And they're also very agile in the water. But they can't outswim a seal. And swimming is a lot of energy. I'm sure we all know after a day of swimming, it's just exhausting, and it's no different for polar bears. They burn about 4 times more energy when they're swimming compared to when they're walking. So even though they can swim a long time, they don't necessarily want to. And we know that they are having to swim longer in certain areas of the Arctic already, and we would like that to not continue for them. We want to keep them on that sea ice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have another question coming up.
My name is Casper, and I'd like to know if polar bears eat crustaceans.
Thanks, Casper. Polar bears, if you serve them a lobster dinner, they would probably eat it. They are still bears and they'll try to eat whatever, but their mouths aren't probably that well suited for eating crustaceans with the crunchy shells. Polar bear mouths and teeth are very well adapted for their seal prey. So that's really what they're going for. Polar bears eat more fat than any other animal in the world. They like things to be kind of squishy when they eat them. So even though they're very strong and have a very strong bite, their jaws are actually a bit weaker than grizzly bears because grizzly bears have a crunchy diet, a lot more fruits and vegetables. Polar bears are eating squishy seal blubber and pulling those seals up, and they need a lot of calories and a lot of blubber to be successful out there. So also finding the crustaceans might be difficult. We've actually talked about that when we're out here on the tundra on the coast of Hudson Bay. These bears are waiting here right now because there's no sea ice on Hudson Bay yet. Pretty soon there will be, and they'll be out there to go hunting. But right now we see them digging in the seaweed, and they will, eat things. And we wonder, do they ever find a little crab or something? I don't know. They'd probably eat it, but they wouldn't go out of their way for a crustacean. But yeah, fun question. Thanks.
No problem.
And I think this is our last question.
Hello, my name is Victoria, and I was wondering what kind of plants do polar bears eat?
Oh, thanks for that question. Yeah, that's a good question on the heels of the crustaceans. Good question. So polar bears eat fewer plants probably than any other bear species. So we've got 8 bears in the world. Polar bears are the most carnivorous, but they still will eat plants. We do see them eating seaweed. They'll eat berries. They kind of eat whatever they can get their paws on in some ways, but we know that those plants aren't really doing much for them. So it'd be like you trying to live on iceberg lettuce or something. They'll do it to kind of keep their mouths moving. Maybe it feels good in their stomachs. But again, they do need the fat, though they will kind of chew on whatever they can find. But polar bear salads don't go a very long way for them.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all, friends from Craven County. We really appreciate your questions. They were really great, amazing questions. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Alysa, thank you so much for sharing with us. We do have some additional questions from our other viewers that we'd like to share with you at this time as well. The first question we have is, how many polar bears are there actually in the world right now?
Yeah, that's an important question. We think there are about 25 to 26,000 polar bears right now across the world, which is great news. They are not yet endangered, but they are considered vulnerable due to habitat loss because of climate change. But there's still polar bears across the circumpolar Arctic. They're very hard to count and study, though, so that is our best estimate. It's really hard to get out there on the sea ice and count exactly how many, but yeah, we know 25 to 26,000 at this point.
Okay, well, that's great news.
Yes.
What do polar bears need to survive?
Yeah, the number one thing polar bears need to survive is their food, blubber. And they can only really get that on the Arctic sea ice. So again, polar bears cannot outswim seals in the water. They use the Arctic sea ice as a platform to breed, to travel, and to hunt seals. So they can sneak up on seals that have hauled out to rest, like the seal here. They'll also sometimes wait at a breathing hole for a seal to come up for air. And that's how they make their living out there on the Arctic sea ice. So we get the question sometimes, well, what if we could take all this plastic and turn it into a floating platform out there for the bears so they could still get access to the seals? And it's a really creative idea, but sea ice is also more than just the polar bear's platform. We say that sea ice is to the ocean what soil is to the forest. It's growing the base of the food chain. Algae, the plants, grow up inside the sea ice, and those plants feed the microorganisms, which feed the fish, which feed the seals, which feed the polar bears. And people, of course, are also part of this Arctic ecosystem. And sea ice is so large and white and reflective that no matter where you live, no matter where you're watching from today, sea ice has an impact on your climate. It helps regulate our entire globe. So we like to call it Earth's air conditioner. So they really need Arctic sea ice so that they can get the blubber, and we all need Arctic sea ice so that we can have a stable Earth.
It's fascinating how we're all interconnected, right? Like right now, all of us are in different time zones, but we're all acted by the world that you and the scientists at Polar Bears International study. So thank you so much for your work. I have another question. This one's fun. Do polar bears dance?
Oh, that's so nice. So they don't dance. Like if we played music, they wouldn't get up and dance. But we do see them sparring, like play fighting a little bit sometimes, and it can kind of look like a bit of dancing. And there was actually a famous bear out here. He's, hasn't been around for quite a few years, but they called him Dancer because he would kind of get up and look at people that might be viewing him on a Tundra buggy and then back up. And as he backed up, he would kind of sway his paws and it looked like he was dancing. But as far as I know, he was a very special case. So I don't think you'd see one regularly dancing, but you could kind of maybe put some music over some polar bears sparring and it might feel like they're doing a little jig.
Yeah, they kind of look like they're doing a two-step or something, right? So
Yeah.
the next question is, where do polar bears get their name?
Oh, yeah. So, North America is a little special in that we're kind of the only group that calls them polar bears. And of course, that's because live near the North Pole, even though they don't live at the North Pole. There's not really any food there. Most of the rest of the world calls them ice bears. And to be honest with you, I think that's the better name. And maybe one day we'll all shift
Probably
to
makes
ice
more sense.
bears. It does. Yeah, they really do need that ice, but that would be where their name comes from. Their Latin name is Ursus maritimus, and that means sea bear because they are an ocean bear and the only marine bear of all. So, yeah, a couple different ways to look at it.
Okay, so now I'm going to think ice bears, even think every time I hear polar bears. So that's great. And last question for you before we wrap up and call it a day is, why don't polar bears live where normal bears live?
Oh, well, one might argue polar bears are normal in their own way, but I get it. They are the only ocean bear. They are a little bit different. They have a totally different diet, and it's really just how they evolved. So they evolved from their brown bear ancestors. So they used to be brown bears up in Alaska, living that brown bear life. And maybe, a cub was born one day that had a lighter coat, and it tried to get out on the sea ice and it was successful. And it got some, seal, and it did really well out there. And eventually we got this branch of bears that found this niche, this ecological niche that was untouched, and they became this predator, top of the food chain out on that Arctic sea ice. So they did evolve a very unique, specialized, interesting way of life that's unlike any other bears. And, they're all the more special for it, all the more reason we love them.
Well, we're so excited that you're sharing more about these wonderful animals that you get to work with every day. And we are at time. I can't believe we're already at time. But Alysa, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and the incredible work and necessary work that you all do at Polar Bear International. And students from Craven County, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited you are also available to join us and ask such wonderful questions from Alysa. Teachers joining us today, if you're ready to learn more about Career Connect, which brings us this wonderful spotlight with Alysa and wonderful subject matter experts from across the world and the country, please visit careerconnect.discoveryeducation.com to join the waitlist and to have your students connect with professionals from leading organizations. Don't forget that we're always going to have these spotlight events occurring and happening. So we hope you join us next time. And remember, we also have another spotlight event with more Polar Bear International professionals in the next couple of hours. So at the top of every hour, we're featuring a brand new scientist. So hopefully you'll join us for those spotlight events for the remainder of the day. But if you don't get to join us, thank you so much for joining us to meet Alysa. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much, and keep learning and stay curious, my friends.